It's time to start.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Stanley's Stinkers, a unique look at college football where we pick the losers. That's right, the losers. Each week we'll look at 20 of the biggest games, we'll break down the teams, we'll analyze the coaches, and we might even flirt with the cheerleaders. But in the end, we'll predict the losers, or in this case, the stinkers in each of the contests. Stay tuned because this week's games are coming up. Well, the 2012 college football season took a bunch of strange twists last weekend, leaving many fans wondering if their team is next on the upset list. 3 top 10 teams fell in Week 6, and that didn't help our record either. We fell to 12-8 last week, bringing our current winning percentage down to 78%. With that said, here are the games that show up this week on the Stinkometer. Tennessee at Mississippi State. Coach Dan Mullen has his Bullpups chasing an undefeated season, and if the chase goes any further, Mississippi State has to beat the Riflemen of Tennessee. That task may not be so simple since Tennessee has had a week off to get over their near upset of UGA 2 weeks ago and to prepare for this key SEC matchup. Tennessee has one of the most powerful passing attacks in the conference, but Mississippi State has one of the best defenses. This will come down to a battle of the Tylers. Tyler Bray for Tennessee versus Tyler Russell for Mississippi State. My money's on the visitors. In an upset, Stanley Stinker, Mississippi State. Ohio State at Indiana. The urban rebuilding of Ohio State is in full swing now, with the Buckeyes also chasing that undefeated season. The task for Ohio State will be easier this week with a trip to Bloomington to face the 2-3 Hoosiers. While the Hoosiers' offense has been steady, the defense ranks near the bottom of every category. That's something Buckeye quarterback Braxton Miller will take advantage of. Miller has over 1,700 yards in total offense himself. Wow, that's more than the whole Indiana offense has combined. This should be a fun day to be a Buckeye. Stanley Stinker, Indiana. Texas A&M at Louisiana Tech. This was supposed to be the opener for both teams, but Hurricane Isaac caused the game to be rescheduled. Back then, neither team was ranked. This week, both teams enter the AP poll for the first time this season. La Tech comes in undefeated, while A&M has just one loss, a squeaker against Florida. Both teams have a very talented offense, but the Bulldogs have statistically one of the worst defenses in the country. Now that A&M has a full head of steam, these cattle should stampede for at least one more week. Stanley Stinker, Louisiana Tech. Kentucky at Arkansas. The Piggies from Arkansas showed new life last week in their win over Auburn, and that may have come just in time to salvage the Pigpen. With games against South Carolina, Mississippi State, and LSU to end the season, Arkansas has got to win the next 3 for any chance at a bowl game. Kentucky, meanwhile, they're still Kentucky. The Wildcats have just one win, and even though they've shown some signs of promise, the swan song is playing for head coach Joker Phillips. Look for Arkansas to continue their rebound in this one. Stanley Stinker, Kentucky. Auburn at Ole Miss. The loveliest village on the plains is not being so friendly to Coach Gene Chizik this week. Fans are using the media to call for the replacement of the Auburn coach who just 2 years ago won a championship for the Tigers. The insurgents of Ole Miss, meanwhile, seem to have their offense taken straight from Auburn's championship season, and they're using it to their advantage, posting a 3-3 record, but all 3 losses came against ranked opponents. As they say in the Grove, hotty toddy, gosh almighty, Stanley Stinker, Auburn. Florida at Vanderbilt. College football fans will notice that the Swamp Lizards from Florida have been on a steady rise this season, reaching full stride just in time to upset LSU last week at home. But the bad thing about big wins is they're sometimes followed by big letdowns. Can Will Muschamp keep that from happening to this top 5 team? Yeah, probably. But Vanderbilt is smart enough to take advantage of any weakness exposed last week against LSU. Look for a pretty close game, but no letdown. Stanley Stinker, Vanderbilt. Well, stay tuned because we have 14 more games on the Stinkometer, including Bama's trip to see Truman the Tiger at the zoo, the Red River rivalry, a showdown at South Bend, and, of course, the head ball coach in Baton Rouge. We've got those games and more coming up, but first, here are the people who make Stanley Stinkers possible. Stanley Stinkers is sponsored each week by AnytimeCostumes.com. This is the one-stop place for everything Halloween, from kids to adults, fierce to feisty. Click on the link on our sponsors page for special discounts. AnytimeCostumes.com. By CBSSports.com Fan Shop. It's the place for all the latest college football, Major League Baseball, NFL, and even NASCAR gear. From tees to hats to jewelry, jackets. It's the perfect place to shop for your school colors. By Passion by Eve. If the spark is flickering, Passion by Eve can help. Lotions, potions, and things that go buzz in the night. And don't forget to enter Stanley Stinker's latest contest. Guess the correct final score in the Auburn-Ole Miss game, and you could win a prize pack worth almost $70 from PassionByEve.com. Just click on the Passion Contest link on our webpage. And remember the love in your life with something special from Passion by Eve. And by 5 Front PR. When it's time to take your business from the forefront straight to the 5 Front, call the experts at 5 Front PR. Alabama and Missouri. The Crimson Pachyderm have had a week off to recover from any lingering injuries and to get ready for the Missouri offense that would have featured highly touted quarterback James Franklin. Franklin was injured last week and will not play against Alabama, leaving the quarterback duties to a redshirt freshman. That's like feeding time at the zoo, in reverse. Alabama's defense is ranked in the top 5 against the run and the pass, and this is one week the young Tiger signal caller won't soon forget. Look for another shutout for the Tide. Stanley Stinker, Missouri. Texas at Oklahoma. This is the Red River rivalry, a game that has her tradition dating back to 1900 and roots planted firmly in the neutral turf of the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. Texas leads the series 59-42, but last year's embarrassing 55-17 loss is still sticking in their hooves. Both teams come into the game with a single loss to ranked opponents, and both teams have strong offenses. The big difference between these two powerhouse teams comes on defense, where Oklahoma has the edge. But stats don't mean much in rivalries. Tradition and heart wins every time, including this time. Stanley Stinker in a small upset, Oklahoma. Stanford at Notre Dame. The Leprechauns have proven that they are real contenders for the championship this year, with a few tough wins away from home. If the magic is to continue, Notre Dame has to pass the test against the Cardinal at home. This is the same Stanford team that dismantled USC a few weeks ago and ranks in the top 10 in passing defense. But defense is something Notre Dame specializes in this year. The Leprechaun defense is giving up only 3 passing touchdowns and no rushing touchdowns. You can't win if you don't score, and don't look for a lot of points in this one either. In a classic Stanley Stinker, Stanford. South Carolina at LSU. This is a game with two teams headed in the opposite directions. The Bayou Bengals were dominated by Florida last week, while the forlorn fowl impressed the nation with their smacking of Georgia. But this is just the second of 3 consecutive tests for South Carolina, with the final test coming next week against Florida. If the head ball coach wants to stay undefeated, he has to keep his team focused one game at a time. And where better to lose your focus than Louisiana? That's what the Bengal Tigers will be counting on anyway, but don't look for it to happen. Look for the USC defense to rattle LSU quarterback Zach Mettenberger most of the night, and look for a quarterback change by halftime. Stanley Stinker, LSU. And here are a few more games that show up on the Stinkometer this week. Houston will have no problem with UAB. Iowa State will upset Kansas State in Ames. Michigan State will shoot down Iowa. Rutgers will squeeze the Orange in Syracuse. SMU will ride over Tulane. Oregon State will stop BYU. West Virginia will continue their quest over Texas Tech. Florida State will bounce back with a win against Boston College. USC will take Washington, and the Wolfpack of Nevada will continue their offensive explosion with an easy win against UNLV. Stanley Stinkers is intended for entertainment only. A free podcast and blog is always available online at stanleystinkers.com. You can also follow us in your favorite newspaper. Stanley Stinkers is a production of Gramagdula Broadcasting. Any rebroadcast, reuse, or other transmission of Stanley Stinkers without the expressed written permission of me, Stanley Stinkowich, is appreciated. Join us next week as we use reverse prognostication to predict the losers in college football's biggest game.